Liz? Councillors? Thank you very much. Time is 6:32. I will now open the meeting. Now, attendance, apologies and leave of absence previously approved.
Through the Chair, we've got an apologies from Councillor Billich, apologies from Councillor Giardina and Councillor Boyd, and leave of absence previously approved by Councillor Cooper. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to the Audit and Risk Committee meeting. My name is Councillor Brooke O'Donnell and I am the councillor presiding at this committee meeting. Firstly, we wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on, the Whadjuk of the Noongar people. We wish to acknowledge their elders past, present and future and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the life of this city and this region. The Audit and Risk Committee meeting operates under the terms of reference set by the Council. The meeting is governed by standing orders and a code of conduct. The meeting considers matters listed in the agenda and then makes a recommendation to the next ordinary meeting of Council. If you have an interest in an item being considered by the committee at tonight's meeting, please be advised the recommendation from the committee does not constitute a decision of the Council. If you have a question about a function, I will shortly open public question time. I don't think we've got any attendees, so I will just leave it there. Now, we definitely don't have anybody attending the meeting. No. Just checking. Okay, so we will also welcome, we have guests, the Office of the Auditor General. We have Patrick Arulung Singham and Siraj Karki. And also we have our internal auditors, Andrew Zavitanos, who is on the phone, he's in Melbourne, and Mick Goosen. So welcome, and we will hear from you all shortly. So we will confirm the minutes from the previous meeting. So councillors, we have our minutes for the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 17th of March. If there's any questions, or we'll ask for a mover. Councillor Thomas, seconder. Councillor Stallard. Okay, I'll put that to the vote. All in favour? Okay. On the basis of the above motion, I now sign the minutes as a true and accurate record for the meeting of 17th March 2020. Okay, thank you. Now, announcements by the member presiding without discussion. I have none. Matters for which the meeting may be closed. Obviously, we've got our pink confidential documents. If we need to go behind closed doors, obviously we will stop the streaming so there's no guests. So we've got disclosure of interests. Oh. Sorry.
Through the Chair, no, there's been no disclosures tonight.
Yep. Great, okay. Excellent. So we'll move on to the reports to Council. Now, the first reports to Council are 9.1, or actually, sorry, there you would have a little memo just saying that some of our numbering systems just in error. So if that hasn't been made clear already, just note your attention to that there. So we've got item 9.1.1, which is the interim audit findings for the year 30th of June 2020. Now, we have the Auditor General. Would you like to come and give a discussion, presentation of?
Definitely. Thank you, Chair. So our interim audit, in our interim audit, we reported 3 findings, 2 moderate and 1 minor. So the finding one was around the consulates and staff's primary and annual return, which we noted that in some of the instances it was not properly filled. So we discussed with the management, and management agreed that it will be done properly going forward. Finding 2 is around the plant and equipment stock take, which we noted that there was no procedure for a periodic stock take. So there again, management agreed with our finding, though the value involved is insignificant, but still, it's around the plant and equipment which city uses for their operational purposes. So it's better to have a periodic stock take to ensure the asset which city is showing in their record is there physically there. So management agreed with our finding, and they are investigating the cost and benefit analysis of doing so. The last finding is around late acquittal of purchasing corporate credit card statements. In few instances, we found that they were acquitted later than the period which city has. City allows around 7 days for acquittal of credit card statements, but in a few instances it went beyond that. So there also management agreed with our finding, and then agreed to strengthen the controls in this area. So, and that's a minor finding. So that's pretty much it. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have.
Sure, thank you. Councillors, so you have the attachments for your interim audit that we've just discussed. Were there any questions? Councillor Thomas?
I think my question is more to management. You say that there are existing controls to ensure the safe custody of the asset class. What sort of controls are there for the plant and equipment stock take? Could we have some more information on that, please?
Yes, certainly. Through the chair, so the city does periodic checking of plant and equipment against the maintenance schedule. It also does an annual reconciliation of vehicle licences and registrations, so checking against the incoming licence and registrations, and thereby if there's any vehicles that have gone out of the system, we're identifying them through those. And the other point I'd make, which just following on from the auditors, was that the line item is actually less than 1%, so it is fairly low in materiality, but notwithstanding, we're looking at that process. It really comes down to a bit of cost benefit and how much additional resource you continue to put in to these things, but there are compensatory controls as mentioned.
Councillor Thomas?
My second question is also probably to management. Who decided that acquittals of credit cards would be acquitted within 7 days, and why such a short time when we have international invoices?
Through the chair, so that policy was an internal policy that we established, so I guess the buck stops somewhere about with me. And looking at the 7-day turnaround, in most cases it's practical, but a good example would be one of the ones that was identified was where we had a transaction with Microsoft, and so we were waiting on paperwork internationally. And so the city, as part of its review of policies and CEO instructions, will definitely be reviewing this 7 days, and it won't be going down, let me tell you.
Councillors, any further questions? No? Well, thank you very much for your report and audit, and thank you for all your work. So, councillors, we have a recommendation on page 11 that council accepts the findings of the interim audit undertaken in May. Could I please have a mover? Councillor Thomas, seconded Councillor Bear. All of those in favour? Carried unanimously. Why did I turn that off? Okay, we are now... Yeah, obviously you're more than welcome to stay, but I know that there's probably much more appetising things like dinner and things like that at home, so thank you very much. If you wish to go, that's more than welcome. Yeah.
We'll stay.
Sure. Okay. All right, so we'll move to the internal audit report. Now, we have also our auditors here, so I'll ask if you would like to give us an update. We'll go through the documents one by one if that's okay. That's just so that councillors and myself don't get too lost. And obviously, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well, that would be great.
Through the chair, thank you, Chair. My name is Nick Goosen. I would like to introduce our partner in on the.
Okay,
Through the
sorry
chair.
about that.
Thank you. I would like to introduce our partner Andrew Zavatsanos to you. Andrew has been involved with the city 2-3 years ago, and since our previous partner Duivo resigned and departed from Crow, Andrew has taken over. So I would like to hand over to Andrew just to introduce himself, and then Andrew will provide you with a summary of our findings. You're still there, yeah. Through the chair, no. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, just a reminder that obviously the generic document 9.1.2.1 is stuff that we can discuss. If we need to discuss any of the information contained in the rest of the documents or questions relating to the other the confidential attachments, the financial controls report, the credit card review and the tracker, that we will have to move behind closed doors. Would any councillors have any questions about the mid-term review? Councillor Ritchie?
I'm not sure if this does put it behind closed doors, but I do have a question related to this.
Yeah, we'll hear Councillor Thomas's and then I guess we'll put it behind closed doors.
I'm not sure whether mine should be behind closed doors. I was
Probably is.
asking the management to comment on the recommendation for the management review processes. That was the moderate finding, and is that it going to be a problem for us? Do we need any more staff to implement that review mechanism?
I'm happy to answer that through the chair. No, we don't need extra staff.
And you don't have a problem with those recommendations?
No, we don't.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions before we look at?
Mine's probably a variation on that theme, so just really an elaboration on that. It was noted that we had agreed to the review, but the comment was unclear what will be implemented by August 2020. So that's what I was really clarifying. What was it that was going to be implemented by August 2020? This is regard to the moderate finding.
Sorry, through the chair, can I just come back to, I'm not sure exactly which item you're referring to,
Sorry,
Councillor Ritchie.
the item that was noted as moderate, which was the reviewing the mechanism to ensure high-level management personnel review the work performed by lower level ones. Page 18, page 17, 18 of the document.
I think she's...
And our colleague on the phone also indicated that if the risk remains if we actually haven't done something about implementing it, as opposed to just investigating implementing it. So my question was, what is it that we're actually implementing? Sorry, Gary.
So through the chair, as the auditor said earlier, the city will go through and look at whether all or part of that recommendation will be implemented. And it basically comes down to a bit of a cost benefit and a resource issue. So in this particular case, we'll look at the recommendations, look at, is it something that's going to cost us a lot of extra time in money, process and administrative effort? And if so, are there other compensatory controls that we put in place? But either way, we will be closing those out back through the audit tracker, and if they're not implemented, the next audit update will show that they're not implemented and why. I hope that answers your question.
Councillor O'Connor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just referencing this report here, the Crow Mid-Year in Review report. On page 25, there's an item that talks about policy framework, and it references city strategies not being in place, limited or no policies existing, and policies and procedures not updated, and some in draft form. So my question is, are these obviously not council policies, these are internal staff policies, is that correct?
Through the chair, my understanding is they'd be what we call CEO instructions.
Okay, and my follow-up question is, do they, have they fallen off the radar, or they just haven't been developed and implemented?
Through the chair, they certainly haven't fallen off the radar, but one of the things that we have taken, I suppose, and again coming back to COVID-19, is we've been very deliberate in our strategy in terms of what our principal focus is on, and the principal focus has been on financial controls, governance and compliance. And some of the other recommendations, and that's where you'll see in progress and implementation dates of December 2020, and in some cases months into 2021. So we've been quite deliberate in saying we've got a finite resource, we take a risk-based approach, we'll nail all the financial compliance and governance related stuff, and then the others will gradually work our process through. But coming back to Councillor Thomas's request earlier, if we were to grab all of those now, then there would be a resource implication for us.
And just further to add, we've also reduced our staffing resources this year, so that, you know, there was more people covering off. The resource that was doing council policies left, and we didn't replace that position because of our financial situations. So we are now figuring out where those resources will come from to pick up and finalise the CEO policies and CEO instructions.
Councillor Thomas?
I don't know whether this should be behind closed doors, but I'm sure you will tell me. So one of the second point is the CEO credit card review. Can we have some idea? Is this huge amounts of money? So what's perhaps the annual spend, the average monthly spend, and can we have a couple of examples?
I think the advice I'm getting is through the chair. We need to take that behind closed doors.
Thank you.
No? You're saying no? Sorry, I misunderstood. So coming back to the question, so the annual spend for CEO credit cards around about 4K, there or thereabouts, and monthly average, obviously, if you draw a line through it, it's about 400 a month. And expenses for a variety of things, but probably a good example of one would, or a couple would be the registration for councillors for UDA. So there was a UDA Congress earlier this year or late last year. You can probably help me out with that, but it was registration for councillors to attend that. So that's a typical example. Another one is things like costs associated with the council strategic retreat and the like. Suffice to say that corporate credit cards are an area that both management and audit take a very close look at, and you'll also note in the audit findings that following a review of all the transactions, there was nothing found to be outside policy. So we are pretty strong in that regard. So.
Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Sorry, just in relation to the credit card scheme, we're certainly not concerned with the amount of transactions and the average spend, and as was mentioned earlier, it's only about 4 or 5 paying.
Thank you for that. Councillor Ritchie?
Just on that same line, I notice in monthly expenditure there are a number of other credit cards. I'm assuming the directors have got them. Could you just give an idea of how many credit cards and who holds them, please?
I might pass that on to the Acting Manager Finance.
Through the chair, at the moment we have 14 active credit cards for various business departments, libraries, procurement, HR, they're the main ones, and also the directors have cards attached to them. Thank you.
Can I just add to that in relation to the controls? So each card holder is obviously given guidelines about what can be spent, but those cards are reviewed by the supervisor. So in the case of the IT manager, Rhonda would sign off on the expenditure for the manager. The directors are signed off by the CEO. The CEO is signed off by the Director of Corporate Services and the Mayor. So we've got a pretty strong and robust process around them, and they're a fairly efficient way to make payment and quite cost effective, but so long as you make sure you've got proper controls in place.
And just a follow-up question, the limits on them?
Through the chair, Manager Finance, want to add to that, please?
Through the chair, highest limit is $10,000 for procurement, and other ranges between $3,000 to $5,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, any other further questions? Oh, sorry, Councillor Stallard.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I'm just not sure if this is the appropriate forum to ask this one, but having the situation where we've changed TAC as a council due to COVID-19, I was wondering if the Auditor General's Office, whether they have any set position they've taken in relationship to how that's going to affect our bottom line, our ratios and all that sort of stuff. I was just wondering if there's any considerations or special considerations that the department's putting forward or an understanding, and how does it compare to what's happening in other councils, and what allowances are you able to make?
Okay.
Well, through the chair, the ratios are directly linked to our financial statements, and at this stage, in general, the expenditures are going up. So in that regard, whichever way they sort of affect the ratios, that will be the outcome, and that's basically industry-wide impact of COVID-19. Obviously, if you have any capital expenditure that affects your asset ratio, but generally at this stage, revenues are going down, expenditure are going up, and as I mentioned earlier, your ratios are directly linked to your financial statements. So maybe, at this stage, probably they might have some of the local governments may have worst situation than the last year, but that's what we foresee at this stage. So,
Definitely, and the Director would like to add that?
Sorry, through the chair, Councillor Stallard, if I may, you'll recall when we adopted budget, the Department of Local Government typically requires the production of the long-term financial plan. They expressly came out in their regulations for this upcoming year and said that whilst local governments weren't to be precluded from producing a long-term financial plan, the emphasis was on putting together a budget that met the needs and requirements to respond effectively to COVID-19. And so that's a position that the city has taken. So I think there's a bit of a recognition in the sector and by the state government that this is going to be an abnormal year.
Thank you. And did you, Andrew, did you have anything that you wanted to add to the question? Just checking. Any other questions? Okay. Mindful that I know some councillors have indicated that they would like to talk about the confidential attachments. So would we like to move to go beyond closed doors? No? Does anyone want to talk about any of the... No? Okay. All right, well, we'll move to the recommendation then. So the recommendation, I will just say, obviously, the mid-year review, the positives that came out of the observations from Crow about the relationships with our auditors and our accountability and our relationships. we're very, it's nice to always get reports that say we're doing things well. So it's, it's a very good read. So thank you very much. So recommendation is to accept the findings of the report undertaken in May for the financial year ending 30th of June 2020. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor O'Connor, seconded Councillor Sewell. No? Sorry, hang on. Sorry, I've just flipped my page. That's what happens when you get stuck. Sorry. The recommendation is actually on page 17. Now we've got to receive the details of the internal audit review conducted during the past quarter and note the status of the internal audit tracker and amend the 3-year strategic internal audit plan. Let's seek a mover again. Councillor O'Connor, would you like to move that? Seconded Councillor Sewell. All of those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. And again, more than welcome to stay if you like. Otherwise, more than welcome to leave. Thank you very much.
Through the chair, thank you.
Thank you. So we've got item 9.13, local government audit regulations. Now, we have a recommendation. Now, will we have any questions about this is also confidential. Yes, it is. If we've got any questions about anything, we will have to move closed doors, probably.
Mine's quite general.
Okay, well, that's okay then.
Go for it. My question is to, I guess, the CEO. Is there a workplace training plan that sets out the minimum requirements that each role in the organisation requires, such as procurement, OHS, records, etc.?
Training is assessed through the performance evaluation review process by their supervisors of each staff. So everyone has an annual performance review, and any training shortfalls or improvements required are then identified through that discussion process, and then that information is fed through to the human resources area who set up the, make sure that we've got the training in place. A lot of the standard training now we have through online, we have an online subscription for training. This year we've changed our approach. We're going to be doing a lot of the training in-house because we haven't got a budget this year for training. So staff that have skills in procurement, financial management, risk management, whatever, a range of skills, will be doing the training and taking on board those areas to help other staff make sure they still continue to develop and get the skills they need to do their job effectively.
Thank you. Follow-up question?
Sure.
But for some roles that require a minimum standard, is there some bits of training that are part of like an induction process, like in terms of procurement,
Oh yes, yeah, in the induction process everyone goes through the record training, the procurement training, the financial training, all the standard processes and systems that we have. Everyone gets inducted through those processes, and then there's the ongoing refresher courses, so to speak.
Councillors, any other further questions? Councillor Sewell?
It's really a follow-up question to Councillor Donna's question. Just in terms of occupational health and safety, is that part of the induction training that all staff undertake as well?
Yes, definitely. Very important part of it.
Any other further questions? No? Okay. Well, we have the recommendation on page 22 on the screen to receive the outcomes of the Local Government Audit Regulations 1996. Could I have a mover? Councillor O'Connor, seconded Councillor Thomas. Put that to the vote. All of those in favour? Carried unanimously. Okay. We'll move on to item 10, motions. We have none. Questions by members without notice? No. The questions by notice, there is no due notice. There's no urgent business, and we'll move to item 14, meeting closed to the public at 7:06 p.m. Thank you very much for your attendance and interest.